Okay, going home. I was having a conversation with some students today about the importance of following rules, even though sometimes the rules might not make sense to us at the time. As a kid, I was brought up with the belief that the rules are meant to keep the order, and I was always very good about following rules as a little kid. My questioning on rules didn't start until much later. And I remember that as a child, not all the rules made sense to me, but I knew that I had to follow them anyway. I also remember that my cousins and some of my classmates would frequently question the rules. And I also remember that when they would question the why of the rule, the answer was very frequently because I said so, whether it was from parents or whether it was from teachers. As an educator and as a parent now, I try to remember that, and I try to always give a brief explanation of why the rules are important. I think that I've had more success as an educator explaining the rules than I did as a parent, but nevertheless, I try to remember that kids don't always understand the reason for the rules. And I also understand that very frequently we are made to follow rules that sometimes don't make any sense. And even though I do not subscribe to the idea of following rules blindly, I still believe that it's important to obey the rules. A story that I like to say about following rules blindly is the time that a friend and I were at a conference. We were staying at a very nice hotel, and part of the deal was that we got to use the hotel garage for free, and we were very excited about that. The first night that we got there, we were very fortunate to find a very good parking spot right next to the elevator. And I told my friend, wouldn't it be nice if we could get this spot every night? So the next morning when we were leaving to the conference, as we were driving away, I noticed that there was a traffic cone nearby. And I asked him to stop, and I stepped out of the car, and I took the traffic cone and I put it over the spot where we had parked. And we laughed about it as we drove off, and we were joking about how it would be very nice if when we got back, the cone was still there and we would be able to park at the same spot. So that evening, after the first day of conference, we got back to the hotel, and would you know it, the cone was still there. So I stepped out of the car, I moved the cone, and we parked in the same spot. So I did that for 3 nights in a row, and nobody ever questioned why the cone was there. So on the last night of the conference, we were driving into the garage, and as we got to the spot, I stepped out of the car, I walked over to the cone, and I started to remove it. But there was a security guard nearby, and he yelled at me, "Sir, please leave that cone alone." And I told him, "Well, we're going to park here." And he said, "Sir, that cone is there for a reason." Well, I didn't want to tell him that we had been the ones who had been placing the cone there for the last 3 nights. So instead, I just put the cone back, and we had to go find another parking spot. But for 3 nights, we had been able to park at a very nice place. So again, I think that rules are very important for keeping the order. And no, I do not subscribe to following rules blindly. But even in this case, I have to follow the rules to keep the order and to avoid any confrontation. So as an educator, I will continue to explain the rules to the students. Hopefully, eventually, they will understand. My goodness.